Hello beautiful people, good morning. So today our video will majorly be about, or be based majorly on, those that want to transition from freehand sketching to pattern drafting. Freehand sketching to pattern drafting. So the first step, besides knowing what freehand sketch is and what pattern drafting is, which will be in your notes, the first step is knowing our measurements and doing them right way. So on the general notes, we used to just measure. We take our busts. You've seen the line with our waist, under busts, our hip line, and the length of our garments, then our shoulder. We take that and so many other things. But there are some measurements that are very, very key in pattern drafting. There are some measurements that are very, very key in pattern drafting. Part of it is one, the bust line. The bust line. I've tied this around this to be able to show us where the bust is and where its line is. On the norm, we measure our bust circumference. We have our bust circumference, which is what I'm taking now. We check for the ease. We've been doing freehand perfectly, you will see. Check for the ease around the bust area so that it does not press the bust, and we take the measurement. But our bust line is a vertical measurement, meaning that from your shoulder to where your bust is, that is the bust line. We need that for pattern drafting. It's very key. We need our waistline. It is very important too. That is a vertical measurement from here to the waistline, from your shoulder to the waistline. And then we also need our hip line measurement. Besides that, we need, in some cases, if the cloth will have a yoke, we need our over busts, the circumference and the length from the shoulder. Do you understand? And also we need our under bust. In some cases, we need our under bust, or in most cases during pattern drafting, for perfect fitting, we need our under bust, this is the circumference, and we also need the length of the under bust, which will form our under bust line when we are drafting our pattern. So the general measurements we take, I hope you can see this. General measurements we take if we are going to draft a basic bodice. We need the bust line, we need the shoulder or the back, we need the chest line or armhole line. The chest line is what I just measured, where the over bust is. This is the chest line, where you want your garment, like the neck of your garment, to the width, the neck depth rather, to start from, or where the yoke will end, the chest line. Then we have our waistline. I've explained that, the hip line, the bust circumference, round the bust. We have the waist, round the waist circumference, and we have the hip circumference or hip seat. In some cases, when we have to draft, we have our hip one, like the high hip, which is here, a bit above the normal hip where the bum sits. This is the high hip. If you can see this and you're getting it. And this is the low hip. Some call it hip 1 and hip 2. This is the low hip. So in some cases you need that for perfect shape and fitting. So I intentionally didn't put the under bust line one. I know, we also need our round under bust, our shoulder line, our neck measurements, our neck width, how wide our neck will be, or how deep our neck depth. We need that. We also need, like I explained, for yoke, we need our upper bust, over bust, our bust point. I hope you know. I'm not talking to novices, that's why I'm not taking each of the measurements. These are bust points. This is our nipple to nipple. This is the top of one nipple to another. So I'm just discussing the measurements generally and touching up on them. Then for the sleeves, we need the sleeve length. The sleeve length, that is something like this. Sleeve length, from where it's going to start to where it's going to stop. That's sleeve length. We need our round sleeve, like our sleeve circumference. Then we all need our cap's height. Cap's height majorly is from this place, from the shoulder, this bone here, to where the fattest part, like the fattest part on the sleeve, from here to here. Most times we use a measurement, which is the bust divided by 12 to get our cap's height. But in some cases, especially if the figure or the body shape of the person is variant, you can measure it. Then we have our armhole. Most times these days, people don't even measure armhole. They calculate to get it, and there are different calculations for the armhole. Some do armhole divided by 6 minus 1. Some do armhole divided by 4. Some do armhole divided by 4 plus 2 or minus 1. So it all depends, but I would encourage you, as you are trying as much as possible to transition from the freehand sketch to pattern drafting, what will help you to know what works for you is practice. As you practice, for example, after I teach a pattern or how to draft, you practice it. If you practice it and you're able to do it, you'll be able to know what works better for you. For example, I'll give you an example now. Some people, when they do their nipple to nipple, when they want to take it on the garment, they subtract 1/4, 0.25 from the measurement and take it. Some divide the nipple to nipple and add ½ inch. But it all depends on the way you sew and how much you've practiced. That will tell you what works for you, and in fact you'll be very good at it and get to know what you're doing very well. So another thing I would love to point out before I go to something else on this is the major difference in freehand sketch. The major difference in freehand sketch and pattern drafting is that pattern drafting takes into details every of the measurements. For example, in freehand sketch, we can just assume what this to this might be, or we might not even use it, the post line. But in pattern drafting, we use it. So for all the measurements I've listed here for the basic bodies, we are still going to further on measurements, but for all the measurements I've listed here on the basic bodies, what you do is you differentiate, categorize them, horizontal measurements and vertical measurements. That will help you to quickly acclimatize and understand what you want to do and get used to it. So for all these measurements, group them, which one is horizontal, which one is vertical. So you will know and be able to differentiate this, and this is what I don't take naturally in freehand sketch, which I must start putting in mind as I do pattern drafting. So the reason why, now let's move to this. The reason why I put a cloth around this, you can use your elastic thread. You can use your elastic to do this instead of what I did. Is that in freehand sketch we usually do, and in pattern drafting we usually, in some cases, as we move on, when we get to the intermediate and advanced levels, you see that when we want to do our princess cut or our bustier, or our when we want to do all our bustier, we want to do our corsets, cupped corsets and all that, we need the measurement from here, this vertical measurement from here. This is the waist, right? We need this. I hope you can see this. For this, okay, for this, my waist is what? 17. Did you get it? From the shoulder down to the waist here. That's what they call front waist. It's 17. Now, I hope you can see what I'm doing. From the shoulder to the back waist, this is what? 15.5. This is what? 15.5. 15.5. For the front waist from the shoulder, what did we get? 17. For the back waist from the shoulder, we got what? 15.5. That is to show you that there is difference because of the way the body of the female, of the woman is shaped. There is usually difference between the front, from the neck to the front waist and from the neck to the back waist. That is where, when we get to darts and dart manipulation, you will need that measurement. But I'm teaching now, so you bear it in mind. When we get there, we don't have to go over it again. So the difference, if you look at this now, 17 from front waist to the shoulder is 17. The back waist to the shoulder is 15.5. 17 minus 15.5, we have 1.5. That's to show you that there is difference. For some people, it's up to 2.5. For somebody like me, it's up to 2.5. I hope you can see my body shape. It's up to 2.5. So that is also incorporated into it, because if we want to do bust dart and other things and do some dart manipulation and make our cupped corsets and other things, we need that measurement. So that is the essence of doing this, tying all this around it. For the normal mannequin, the normal body form, if you get it, you have the lines already drawn on it that you don't have to stress. Now, I know you might have a question in your mind that when I want to measure a customer, will I be tying all this around the customer or something? What I would say is this: practice, they say, makes perfect. Me, I believe practice builds you and makes you master what you are doing. I don't see it as practice make perfect. Personally, I see it as practice makes you master what you do. As I am now, when I first started, if I have to measure the front waist down, it gives me issue. I'll get this perfect, but the back, you know, I measured it now and I got 15.5. When I first started, I might be getting something like 16. But now, I'm as good as, because of practice, when I place it, I'm able to get it perfectly and the garment will be cool. So, what I'll say is, if for a start, you might not have to check all this. And what for that waist, if your customer is the patient type, try as much as possible to encourage the person. There are some cases in which you can easily do it without, maybe you're just making normal cupped corset with ankara and all that. But if you are making a wedding gown, for example, you need it. You have to tie it around the person and check and do your work well. As you grow and you move, I said practice, they say makes master. You get to that mastery level that you don't have to tie all this to get what you want. I hope you've been able to gain something from this video. Have a nice day.